Good morning. This is your mission should you choose to accept it. Should you or any member of your IM force be caught or killed, the Secretary will disavow all knowledge.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Ainur Asharina binti Amitani and I am the first presenter of this group. So, the title of our research is a survey on the awareness level among university students towards the congenital disorder of MRKH syndrome. Without further ado, I will proceed my part, which is introduction. So, the first thing that you guys need to know is what is MRKH syndrome? MRKH syndrome is a congenital disorder which the condition of the disorder are present since our birth. And MRKH syndrome itself is defined as a disorder that occurs in a female and mainly affect their reproductive system. This is due to the underdevelopment of their vagina and uterus, even though their outer genitalia is normal. And the MRKH syndrome is named after 4 scientists that have completed their research, which is the Mayer, Rokitansky, Custer, and Hauser. And approximately in Malaysia, there are approximately about 3,000 to 3,500 women that were born with this syndrome. But as for now, there's only 200 of women that has been discovered. So there are 2 types of MRKH syndrome, which is MRKH syndrome type 1 and MRKH syndrome type 2. So what is the difference between these two type of syndrome? MRKH syndrome type 1 is only affected the reproductive system, while MRKH syndrome type 2 is classified when the patient has other abnormalities in other part of their body. And apart of unable to carry out pregnancy, they also suffer from other problems such as hearing loss, spinal problems, and heart defects. So our purpose of research is to identify the level of awareness among university students towards MRKH syndrome in Malaysia. So that's all for introduction.
Assalamualaikum and a very pleasant day I bid to all. I, Amira Shikin binti Muhammad Rosli, will continue to present our technical report regarding on the survey of awareness level among university students towards a congenital disorder of MRKH syndrome. I will present on the literature review. Our literature review is come up with the 4 content, which is 2.1 is about a congenital disorder, a rare disease of MRKH syndrome. 2.2 is about signs and symptoms for type 1 and type 2 MRKH syndrome. 2.3 is about diagnosis and the treatment for MRKH, and 2.4 is the level of awareness among university students about this issue. So for the 2.1, a congenital disorder. A congenital disorder is a medical condition that occurs on or prior to birth. This condition, also called as a birth defect, can be acquired during the fetal stage of development. MRKH syndrome is a rare disease because it only affects 1 in 4,000 to 5,000 women in a general population. For sign and the symptom on MRKH syndrome probably go unnoticed until the girl reach their puberty, as they do not menstruate. Type 1 MRKH syndrome will have the failure of uterus and undeveloped vagina, aplasia. They also have the affected fallopian tube, as the patient could be infertile. Type 2 is when the patient have improper development of other organs and have the renal abnormalities and improper skeletal malformation. For diagnosis and the treatment, the diagnosis of MRKH in Malaysia based on a specialized technique like imaging technique. 2-dimensional ultrasound is the initial one to have a detailed image of the organ. Transabdominal ultrasonography like an ultrasound machine can be used to have a detailed image. Next, 3-dimensional ultrasound like magnetic resonance imaging (MRI) can be used to produce a cross-sectional image of the body and the organ. For treatment, women with MRKH syndrome suffer from extreme anxiety and psychological distress. They are recommended to seek for counseling. But until today, in Malaysia, we do not have a proper treatment for MRKH patient. But we have MRKH Malaysia, a support group to lead the women who have MRKH syndrome to have a normal life. And lastly, on the level of awareness among university students about this issue, university student is lack of awareness, especially a male student. Many students just know the congenital condition of MRKH but doesn't understand the meaning. So students are less concerned because this syndrome is rare and it's less frequent in Malaysia. So the authorities should provide and organize some talks or motivational event to raise the awareness about this issue. So the awareness is essential as we should support them and have some precaution if our relative suffer from this disorder.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Murni Hayati binti Ismail, and right now I will explain more about methodology. Okay, the first part in methodology is about the respondents of the study. We have used the random sampling method in the research, and the total number of respondents are 120 respondents involving the students from universities and local institutes in Malaysia. Most our respondents have aged between 18 years old until 30 years old. For the second part is about instrumentation. We have used self-completion questionnaire as instrument research. We have provided 3 sections with 15 total questions, and for the first section, which is section A, is for demographic data of respondents, while section B is to know the level of knowledge regarding MRKH syndrome involve the respondents' awareness on the MRKH syndrome. Lastly, for the section C is to know level of practice, which is involving respondents' actions and understanding about the awareness MRKH syndrome. After we got the data collected was analyzed by Microsoft Excel 2016. The Microsoft Excel 2016 will make us easy to look the result for our data. And the questionnaires that were rejected and incomplete are not included in the data analysis.
Assalamualaikum to our beloved lecturer and our fellow friends. My name is Nur Ali Izzati binti Azman, and today I would like to present about the result regarding the article that we had done. Based on the result of including 120 respondents, in figure 1 shows the gender of the respondents that took part in the survey. Majority of the 75% were female and another 25% were male. Next, in figure 2 shows the current education level of the respondent, which the highest percentage with 75.8% is the degree students compared to others. In figure 3, majority respondents that took part in the survey were mostly at the age of 18 until 20 years old. Basically, they are university students. From the survey in figure 4, most of the respondents were single with 98.3% of them. The remaining percentage is married and there is no percentage for divorce status. Moving on to the general knowledge regarding MRKH syndrome, that few respondents still do not know about this condition. This is because the condition is rarely exposed to the public and it is one of the rare cases that occur in Malaysia. Referring to the pie chart in figure 5, there are only about 32.5% respondents have heard about the syndrome before. Besides that, in figure 6, majority of the respondents of 68.3% are unaware of this syndrome as congenital disorder, whereas other 31.7% of respondents are aware and acknowledge about this syndrome. This can be due to the definition of the congenital disorder, which a person are born with certain condition, which is a person are born with the syndrome, the MRKH syndrome. Next, the pie chart in figure 7 has shown that 29.2% of respondents are aware that MRKH syndrome is a rare case that happens in Malaysia, while the 25% of them are unaware of the cases. The other 45.8% choose to be uncertain with this statement. MRKH syndrome is considered as a rare case because it is estimated to affect 1 in 4,000 until 5,000 women in the general population. In Malaysia, it was approximately around 3,000 until 3,500 Malaysian women who were born with this condition, and right now about 200 women had been diagnosed with this syndrome. Based on the graph in figure 8, 78.3% of the respondents were exposed to MRKH syndrome from social media. 33.3% of respondents got to know about MRKH from friends. School also play a role as source of information for respondents about MRKH syndrome with 16.7%. The rest of the respondents were introduced by parents with 2.5%. In figure 9, it shows that 59.2% of respondents were uncertain for a person who diagnosed with MRKH syndrome able to get pregnant, while 30.8% respondents would no. Only 10% of respondents would yes for the statement. They cannot get pregnant because they does not have a functional uterus, so they cannot bear children, or in other words, infertile. In figure 10, 42.5% of respondents answered all of the above for the side effect of MRKH. In figure 11, 76.7% of the respondents are aware that some women were born without uterus and upper vagina, while the remaining 23.3% of respondents is not aware about this situation. This is because, come back to the definition of congenital disorder, which is they were born with certain condition. In figure 12, majority of the respondents with 62.8% was aware to refer to obstetrics and gynecology or ONG unit. Next, in figure 13, 97.5% of respondents was responsible to take serious action towards their affected family and relative. In figure 14, eventually, do you think this MRKH syndrome can be treated? From the survey conducted, most of the respondents with 53.3% having doubt about the treatment about this syndrome, while 35% answered yes and another 11.7% answered no. This shows that the respondents do not have a direct view of how this syndrome can be treated.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Alia Najiha from BBMS student with ID number 122-131-19154, representing about the discussion in our article. Discussion is the sixth part in the article, whereby we have to include 5 main points in this discussion. Firstly, we have to restate the study's main purpose. Second, we should include the importance of the study. Third, we have to summarize the result. Next, we have to relate the article with other findings. And the last one is we have to explain the unexpected or non-significant finding in the article. For the first point is we have to restate the aim of the article. Our main objective of this article is to identify the level of awareness among university students regarding congenital disorder of MRKH syndrome. This is where our mission starts to create awareness among university students. In this point, we have included some of the general informations about the MRKH syndrome, such as the history of the MRKH syndrome and also the scientific knowledge of congenital disorder. Next, the second point is the importance of the study. This is where we emphasize more about the contributions of the article towards the university student. As we conduct the survey, we found out that the level of awareness among university students toward congenital disorder of MRKH syndrome is very low. Therefore, we include some general knowledge and information and also the organization that contribute to raise the level of awareness towards congenital disorder. We jump into the summarizing the result according to the objective. We found out that only 29.2% of the respondents were exposed to the general knowledge of MRKH syndrome. This is very unexpected finding. Therefore, we're taking this part to inform the risk factors, disease trends, and also the mental emotional effect of the MRKH syndrome. The general view of the article is very important to support our objective. Based on the study, we gain variety of information about congenital disorder of MRKH syndrome. So in these discussions, we have to relate back the finding with the survey conduct and also other researchers' results. As from the survey, we can conclude that more than half respondents believe that MRKH syndrome can be treated. This is where the information should be corrected. This shows that the respondents do not have a clear view of the treatment of MRKH syndrome. We had included other findings of an article from Boston Children's Hospital about MRKH treatment. Okay, lastly, the fifth point of the discussion is we have to explain the issue of unexpected or non-significant finding. We found out that even though majority of the respondent is from UniKL Mestek, but they only have the basic knowledge of science. Why? This is because congenital disorders such as MRKH syndrome is a rare disease where they need to have external research of the disease. This is why our objective shows that university student is lacking of awareness towards congenital disorder of MRKH syndrome.
As for conclusion, we can conclude that the level of awareness among university students towards the MRKH syndrome is at a low level because there are more than half of university students that never heard or did not know about the syndrome before, and the low level of knowledge of MRKH syndrome as a congenital disorder also has shown that this syndrome got lack of public awareness. There are few limitations that we have faced while completing this research, which is the first one is the limited time due to pandemic situation in Malaysia, and the other one is there is no previous research or study about the MRKH syndrome in Malaysia, since it is this is a really exposed cases. Okay, lastly, the future opportunities that we can gain from this research is we hope that this syndrome, this disorder, can gain a more attention and awareness from the public, and the public involvement and peer support towards the patient and MRKH support group. And we also hope that there is a more research from the experts, and the uterine transplant can be reality and available in Malaysia one day, inshallah. That's all from us. Thank you.